And welcome back to another edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast. I'm your host, Tom Johnston. I'm joined by LaMarr Fields. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good yourself?
Hey, it's just another fine, lovely day in paradise in the sports world. So baseball news has transpired, and some of the top free agents in the league are now headed to their new homes. And I would say probably the biggest one is, well, not the biggest one, but one of the biggest ones is Carlos Correa. And LaMarr, you must be pretty proud just because of like all the lack of spending the Giants have actually done recently. But now they signed him to a 13-year, $350 million deal with an average salary of almost $27 million. What are your thoughts on this, and how do the Giants take the next step with, say, building around a guy like this?
Um, 13 years is long, but that's going rate. 10 to 11, 13 years, a little bit too long, but I mean, in the long run, it'll help the Giants because it lowered his average a year salary.
Mhm.
So that allows him to go out and sign other players as well. I mean, I was reading something yesterday that said if the Giants wanted to, and if they really wanted to, they could go out and get Otani next year if he became a free agent. With the way this deal worked, but I doubt they'll do that. But it's just show some input in but they still be able to do multiple things to help the roster down the road. And Giants just need to be smart and build around them. I mean, they still need a center fielder, need some bullpen arms, and it was a good sign. They need to get somebody, and they did it. I was shocked when the deal came through.
Yeah, it's very shocking because now it's like, okay, the whole Freddie Freeman saga last year with the Braves, and there was reports that he wanted to stay in Atlanta, but things just he went and signed with the Dodgers, and now it's like for a second straight year. Now I don't know all the details of what really transpired between Swanson and the Braves, if they were willing to re-sign him or not, but you know, it just certainly stinks that, two of the Braves' top stars per se, even though they still got other stars that are up and coming, but maybe the Braves kind of took a prudent approach to it and said, you know what, like we'll let you guys go because we see, not that you guys weren't a part of the future, but we do see a future with guys that are already on the team and where we're headed. And maybe it's just, hey, it's a time to reload, but they already have guys in place where they can actually reload. I mean, Acuna is locked up and this, that, the other. So, but that leads to another deal with Dansby Swanson, because we all know that the market dictates the value of anything, no matter what industry you're in. And Dansby Swanson signs with the Cubs, and this is a 7-year, $177 million deal. I do know a fellow Penn Stater of mine. His name's Ryan McLaughlin. He is happy because he is a Cubs fan and stuff like that. But I think overall, just judging how the Cubs have, kind of been in a rebuilding phase, maybe this is a piece that they say, this actually helps us in the long run with the rebuilding phase. What are your thoughts on that? And how would you say Swanson's contract actually compares into market value with Correa?
I think it's a good contract for the Cubs who are trying to turn things around. So it's a good player to add for them. Um, Pretty good player for the Braves, and that's the going rate for the shortstops are a pretty high price right now. Um, See what the Cubs else, what else the Cubs got in hand to do to try to get the team better. With 25 million a year. That's not too bad.
It's also in the market that's pretty good. I mean, the Cubs have been notorious to be spenders in this division. It's like me following the NL Central, it almost seems like, okay, the Cubs and the Cardinals are the two teams that are like willing to spend. And, you know, St. Louis is kind of a similar market size to Pittsburgh because I've been in St. Louis, even though the city's a bit bigger, but like, the market size is kind of like right where Pittsburgh would be. So it's interesting to see where it all is going to go. I mean, I think it's a great signing. It's just he's still young and he's going to be into his prime. And the way that baseball has transpired these past couple free agencies is there's going to be teams in front offices willing to pay that price. And there's going to be other teams in front offices that are not willing to pay the price. And you really can't get upset at either or because somebody's willing to pay the price that somebody isn't. And, at the end of the day, it is what it is. It's just, I'm sure Swansby, enjoyed his time in Atlanta, but I think there's a bigger situation with the Cubs and looking to rebuild onto that and looking to turn them into a contender. And hey, listen, whenever you're in like the fourth largest city in the U.S., you're going to have money to spend, and it's just, hey, maybe we want to be contending with the White Sox or, showing that we can rebuild itself too. But I'm really wondering with some of these long-term deals if there are certain clauses that are being put into them to where, because it's just like, okay, for example, for a guy like Carlos Correa with his contract, it's like that's a big risk in and of itself to do an 11 or so plus year deal at the rate that they're doing it at, where there's got to be some kind of contract clause or at least a couple that says either A, you can like opt out of this at after X amount of years, or we can too. Because don't get me wrong, Carlos Correa is a talent, but I just don't see guys living up to that long term deal all that much.
They don't live up, but that's what the going rate is. That's what it is. Long-term deals is what everybody want and everybody getting. So you gotta take the chance and hope you can get at least 4 or 5 good years out of them, and hopefully they don't deteriorate fast on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what the going rate is. I mean, you go in here with thinking you ain't gonna sign nobody to a long-term deal, you're gonna lose out on players.
Mm-hmm. I mean that is true. That
I mean,
is true.
you could put clauses in there and see if they agree with it. But I don't know. I think Correa got no. If I can remember correct, I think Correa got no trade clause and no opt out. So it's 13 years with the Giants.
Hey,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
Giants front office is willing to make that move and
yeah.
make that risk, then hey, it's
Yeah.
just somebody's
So,
willing to do it.
yeah, guys.
Now we're moving on to some college football because that's pretty much all the baseball that there was to talk about, even though that is pretty big. We started to see, Aaron Judge back with the Yankees, Carlos Correa with the Giants, and, now Swanson with the Cubs. So, and to put one last note on to this, and you can add on after this, is I do know that with shortstops, it is one of the more premier positions in all of baseball because you have to have a lot of range to cover that position. You're asked to do a lot of things. And I remember a guy like Jack Wilson with the Pirates, he made a lot of acrobatic throws and plays that are just like, it's unheard of for some of these other position guys to do. And it's just like, hey, maybe they see the value in that. And it's just like, this guy's going to cover this amount in range. And, he's going to want to be compensated for it in some sort of way.
Yeah, especially shortstop. Really gonna be a big position now with all of with the shifts being gone. So
Mm-hmm.
up the middle defense is gonna be back to being important like it was in the '90s.
That is
Also,
true.
and also with the move to Correa, I think Brandon Crawford might be moving to second base. I'm pretty assuming he said he's going to have to change positions, but he didn't say what position. But I'm assuming it'll be second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
that's true.
I was listening to the Giants, one of the Giants' home radio stations, right after the deal. The next morning, they was talking about, oh, maybe Correa could play third for 1 year, just Crawford 1 year. I said, no, you signed this man all his money. He the shortstop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. You sign a
yeah,
man to that kind of deal, yeah, he's your
yeah,
shortstop. Some
yeah,
guys moving.
yeah.
Now on to some college football because not that every bowl game is really important because we all know that, towards the end of the year, a lot of college football fans they just pay attention to certain bowl games. But if there was one bowl game in particular that really probably caught some eyes just based off the teams that were playing. It was Florida and number 17 Oregon State. They played in the Las Vegas Bowl yesterday, and the Beavers defeated the Gators 30-3. What are your thoughts on that game? And, would you say that moving forward, some of these bowl games that might not mean as much as others might actually get shifted out due to the college football playoff expansion?
Yeah, it might get shifted out. Who knows? But the money's involved, so maybe not. Anytime there's money involved, they're gonna do what it takes. So it might. they might stay. I mean, Oregon State came out and dominated, ran for 164 yards. Didn't really have to pass too much, just ran it down their throat and played good defense. But also, these little bowl games are, I mean, they don't mean nothing, but I mean, scouts are there. So for players looking to get drafted, they show up and play good. They won't have no bad tape. That's my
Mm-hmm.
opinion on it.
Yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
think that sometimes some of these players they might hurt their chances a bit because it's like, hey, these scouts show up to like just about everything. These scouts come to regular season games, they come to just about everything. So, it's just you never know who's watching and when it might be your time to shine. But on to the next part. Coach Prime led Jackson State for one more game, and the Tigers' bid for a perfect season was dashed by NC Central, 41-34. Now, here's my question about Coach Prime because he said this in the past that he's used to his name being in the headlines and this, that, the other, and he really doesn't pay attention to that. But even though writers' opinions and views are basically opinionated, what are your thoughts on Coach Prime and his legacy at JSU?
It's a good legacy. He did a lot for the program and lots for HBCUs at all. You saw a lot of more games on ESPN Plus and stuff. Probably all credit to him, or some of these other schools are getting some good notoriety too. Um, and he was there 3 years and did a good job there. Got the school a lot of money, and the school helped him out too. Gave him his first head coaching job, so we got to be grateful for that. But you knew sooner or later he was going to try to get to a Power Five school, and that's what happened.
Yeah, I like how Dion actually said it himself. Whenever you arrive at a place, before you leave, it's to make it better. And there's certain instances there. I would say that there's a lot more situations where you can make that happen, but there's also instances where you might not be able to make that happen, but you try your best. But overall, I think he left JSU a lot better than what it was, and a lot of people just they can't be mad. I mean it's like he says, the bag chases you. You don't chase the bag. He went to Jackson State to build a foundation, show people that he could, do X, Y, and Z things there. And with very limited resources, I might add. And then, move on to Colorado where, they probably have a tad bit more resources than JSU does. But, just overall, I'm happy for Coach Prime and what he was able to do at JSU. Now it's called you need to elevate, challenge yourself, and build Colorado up to what it is. Because next thing you might make the Pac-12 relevant again with him in or so. But it's really hard to say. Time will tell. You can have all the recruits in the world, but anything is possible. It really just matters about your resources and all of that. And now I want to get into some transfer portal talks and NIL talks, but more importantly, the NIL talks right now because it's being reported, and this is through some recruits visiting prospective programs and prospective programs, offering this much amount in, say, an NIL deal, but you're not really guaranteed playing time or this or that. Like, we'll give you 700K to come here. And compared to the playing time and academics, what are your thoughts on this? And also, do you think NFL scouts might actually start paying attention to that? Because in some ways, and just hear me out when I say this, some scouts might look at it as you're chasing the money for an NIL deal when you may or may not be guaranteed playing time, but your skill set's good enough to go to the next level.
Well, that's a tough one because you don't know some of these kids' home life is. Is the family struggling, or you know what I'm saying? We need to help family out, so it's hard to say. I mean, you definitely want to make some money, but you also definitely want to play so you can get to the next level. So I mean, if you good enough and put it in the work, you should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I personally think though, in some ways, some players shouldn't really just be chasing the NIL money because it's just like in some people's ways, it's just like you're really just in this for the money. And let's put it this way, I think I seen a poll that showed a whole bunch of schools that are having transfer portal like players going out of the program. And wouldn't you know it, I believe Texas A&M was number one on that deal with like 24 guys or so, like transfer, like just putting their name in the portal and saying this and saying that. I think what that goes to show to people is players are picking up on that kind of stuff. It's enough of the, quit just promising me the money. It's just like, like you can't really even promise somebody playing time as a coach. But I kind of like a coach's philosophy of like James Franklin, where he'll sit there and tell the recruit, this is the facilities we have. This is where the program's headed. I'm not going to guarantee you anything, but here's what I can guarantee you. The thing, too, is the right to compete and the right to put your best foot forward. That way, you're showing us that you're at least working hard to attain it, because just throwing a kid money and then just saying X, Y, and Z factors, like, in some ways, that's just messing the game of college football up in some ways. But hey,
I'm glad these kids getting money. They make a lot of money for these schools and see nothing.
I mean, that is true. That is true. And at one time, I was that kind of guy that was like, you're getting a scholarship. But then after I kind of seen some things transpire, I was like, yeah.
These coaches getting lifetime contracts, stadiums are full every week, and the kids can't get nothing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I'm happy for the kids. They're getting their hard work in and this, that, the other. So, I mean, hey, whenever your name is like, I could only imagine back whenever Saquon Barkley was a running back at Penn State, how much in millions of dollars he was generating for Penn State University in athletics. And it's just like, dude, to have a guy like Saquon with NIL in college, like that would command a lot of money. But, that's what happens. Whenever you're a big name and you're going to draw a crowd, a lot of money is going to be involved. But I'm very happy for these guys. They're able to get money for their name, image, and likeliness. But in some ways, there's a prudent way to go about it. In other ways, it's just like, hey, But another big news, the top number one recruit in next year's class of 2024, quarterback Dylan Raiola of Chandler, Arizona, decommits from Ohio State. And check this out. Some folks actually have him leaning towards Nebraska. Why do you think that this actually transpired? Because I kind of could think of a few reasons why, but more importantly, where do you think he's actually headed to now?
Yeah, I don't know. That's new news to me. He was headed to where?
Well, I personally think he might be headed to Nebraska, because there's some people that are pointing a crystal ball to him going to Matt Rule and Nebraska.
Yeah, probably the Matt Rule factor. Coach that already been in the NFL, he wasn't successful, but he does got that. He does got that experience and probably got a pipeline to the NFL. But most college coaches do too. But I don't know. Maybe NIL money. Who knows? Maybe better chance to play at Nebraska. It's interesting.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think I kind of look at it this way: is there have been several recruiting violations at Ohio State for numerous consecutive years, and I think all of it's starting to catch up to them. What one being is I read this article from an Ohio State affiliate that there was a top ranked recruit at Ohio State that in a way that they sounded as if oh yeah, Ohio State knows we're here, but they wait till the last minute to really start knocking on the door and thinking, oh, just because we have all this success, like you're just gonna come here because you're like in the state of Ohio and this, that, the other. And long story short, the kid committed to Michigan, and his father even came out and said a few things, and I'm starting to think that some things are starting to backfire on the way Ohio State goes about recruiting, and Ohio State is doing this and doing that, because, some people in the state, they're starting to catch on. And it's just sometimes, hey, you can hide for so long until you actually get caught. And then it's just like a lot of players are going to see and they're just going to be like, yeah, I'd rather not, be around this or do that.
So
but yeah,
his dad went to Nebraska too.
Yeah.
And he's also I guess he's part of the coaches, part of Steven Rothbard. Yeah, he's part of. Yeah, he went to Nebraska, played for the Lions 14 years. I remember his dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the things that people are saying. Oh yeah,
He
hey,
also got
I mean,
he
yeah.
also got some a whole bunch like over 20 other offers too. So it's gonna be a good story to keep track of.
Oh yeah, I started I've seen his highlights and I started like watching him this morning. And I'm like, yeah, this guy is good. Like he could bring Nebraska back to prominence because it also brings me to another question. Ever since Nebraska really joined the Big Ten and stuff has transpired in recent years, Nebraska's kind of lost their touch with a lot of things. Do you think that? And I kind of see this coming is whenever the Big Ten deals away with the division alignments and stuff like that, because it's probably going to happen whenever the college football playoff gets expanded. Do you think that Nebraska actually is going to become relevant again in terms of football? I know in Matt Rule's press conference and everything, they were talking about how like the donors see a bigger vision and this, that, the other, and they have a lot of investments going into the program. And I was just wondering, do you think that hey, Matt Rule is the guy to turn this program around?
Yeah, I think so. It's time for Nebraska to be relevant again. It's been a long time, man. I grew up as a kid. I used to love watching Nebraska play. The triple option and physicalness they played with. I mean, it won't be like that again, but I need to get back relevant wherever they do.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's good whenever you have more than say two teams dominating in one specific conference. It's going to be interesting to see how things transpire, but I certainly would welcome it, because hey, it actually shows that okay, even if the divisions were aligned, there's still another good team in the Big Ten West, which is actually good for the Big Ten overall because another team is emerging. That's great for not only just the conference, but that's great for these programs because then it shows all these recruits. You just don't have to go to Ohio State or Michigan to win. You could go to a Penn State. You can evidently probably soon go to a Michigan State. You could go to Wisconsin whenever, Paul Chris actually had that thing running nice and stuff. You could eventually go back to a Nebraska whenever it's back to prominence. But it's a good thing for the conference overall. And that's what I look for is it's not just about one sole team or one sole program. It's really about the conference as a whole. How many of these teams make your conference look good, look better than what it is? And I think a lot of people are getting sick and tired of just hearing it all about the SEC this and SEC that.
Yeah.
They really want to see like the Big Ten emerge and this, that, the other, which it's all fine. Now we're gonna get into a little Penn State football talk just because of what's transpired for them recently. They have a new linebacker to the class, Kavion Keys. He is from Virginia, and he was originally committed to North Carolina, and now he has flipped, and he's joining Penn State. And then on top of that, FAU scholarship punter Riley Thompson has announced he's committing to Penn State. And I see why this has happened. Penn State does have a history under James Franklin of really establishing punters that are really good in the NFL or that just do good in college in general. And I could see why he would flip. It's crazy that a scholarship punter would just like make that flip. But, a lot of things have been transpiring in the college football landscape. And then this one really brings it home because Penn State has traditionally had a good pipeline with McDonough. It is a private boarding school in Maryland. And just to give people a glimpse of who has come out of McDonough that has made good at Penn State, PJ Mustipher, Curtis Jacobs, denied Dennis Sutton just to be most recent, but Mason Robinson. He originally was committed to Northwestern. A lot of people had a lot of eyes opening about that because they're like, oh, you're committed to Northwestern instead of Penn State. But what has happened recently is that Pat Fitzgerald and Northwestern have obviously done a few things that probably wouldn't be in his favor. They fired his defensive line coach and I believe the defensive coordinator as well. And when those guys are some of the guys that keep you connected, it can really be detrimental. But now he is coming to Penn State. I think that this solidifies Penn State on so many levels because I watched it. I watched the Blue White Illustrated podcast. I watch a lot of that stuff, and the guy's name isn't coming to my head right now, but he like really dives after these recruits' profiles and everything. He says if you see this guy's profile, he literally resembles Denai Dennis Sutton, but he was like, I think if he arrived on campus and everything, that he might be able to start ahead. And I was like, that's a little bit bold prediction, but I won't fault you for saying that. But I said only time will tell when a guy gets to campus. But overall, I would love to see Penn State have like a dual threat at edge rushing. Kind of like Michigan had last year with Hutchinson and Ajabo, because it really puts into perspective how prepared offenses have to be to really counter that. Because okay, well, you got two edge rushers where most teams only got one, but the fact that you got two, it makes you more lethal because hey, if you run a blitz, both guys are coming, but both guys can clog up, anything. And, I think that this is a good pickup for Penn State. On a sour note, though, Parker Washington did declare for the NFL. I am 50-50 on that, but I do respect his decision, even though this season he was injured. He did miss a fair amount of the season. But at the end of the day, he does have an injury, and I do see how Penn State is going after a couple wide receivers in the transfer portal, and how some guys might be committing to Penn State in the future. But with that aside, I do see where the future of this program is headed. Manny Diaz has hinted that he will be back for another year as defensive coordinator. That in of itself is pretty scary because of the defense he already has and the guys that are coming back with a dual Carter at linebacker and stuff. So just to imagine all of these guys and what they're doing, it is crazy how Penn State really develops their defensive personnel. But I feel like with Aller coming back and, going to become the full-time starter eventually, if not like very soon, I see a lot of promise, for this program. I think Penn State's going to be a contender, and some people have made a bold prediction already about next season that the fact that Michigan comes to Penn State, that game in and of itself is going to determine who represents the Big Ten in the Big Ten championship, at least the East side. And not that I like to look too far ahead, but I kind of do see that happening just because of just the personnel Penn State has. You got two freshmen that are very experienced now, and they know what the Big Ten schedule is like in football. It's going to be scary to see what this team can produce, but yet again, the results got to be played out on the field. So I'm not a guy that looks at it as all what's on paper. It's more about what is this team going to produce overall. But overall, it's just I'm really excited to see how college football is next year. It would not be a shocker to me if Ohio State really might not be as lethal as they once were. It wouldn't shock me. But I also do believe that it is time for other programs to step it up, because a lot of teams are really just getting tired of seeing just the same two teams dominate. I'm pretty sure that's how it is in the Pac-12. I'm pretty sure that's how it is in the SEC, with everybody just looking at, oh, it's Bama and it's Georgia. It's like, where are these other teams? Hopefully Tennessee will bounce on the momentum that they had this year and really look forward to next year. But, anything else you want to add there, Lamar? I know I went on a little rampage with Penn State, but there was a lot that came down. But also, there's a fun fact. Keaton Slovis of Pitt is transferring back out, and this is crazy. And also, there's an Oregon player. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but there's an Oregon player that's going to have 9 years of eligibility at the college level. That is crazy. But he already has his – yeah?
Yeah, I saw that come across my notifications on my phone. I was like, wow, 9 years?
Yeah, because of the COVID year, and then he's had 2 season-ending injuries, and then he's just been granted 2 extra years of eligibility. But from my understanding, he already has his undergraduate and his bachelor's degree. He already has his master's degree. So it's he says he's not sure on his decision, but like if one did come about, like he would really have to undergo a doctoral program of some sort, or like a second master's degree, and that would be tough.
Yeah,
But
it's
9 years, I could not imagine being in college for 9 years like that. That would be wow. I could not imagine that. Like my mind would be so like, here I'm like, really? We're going to school for 9 years? Like you could have had your career and whatnot started a long time ago. Like why nine? But hey, injuries happen, but let's put it this way with a COVID year, because he had his redshirt year and then he had his redshirt freshman year. And then the COVID year with the extra year of eligibility plus two actual like season-ending injuries and this, that, the other. When I looked at this, I was like, that is crazy. Like, I don't know how these guys do it, Lamar. I really don't. Like, getting your bachelor's degree can be tough in and of itself, depending on what your major is. But then adding a master's program where more often than not, like your classes, depending on the program, they could be at night. Like, that's a tough thing to accomplish, considering practicing and this, that, the other, and trying to maintain that. And then on top of that's like in your master's programs, like bad enough in college, like you gotta have a C or better to pass the class. In your master's program, you gotta have a B or higher. And then on top of that, if you start falling behind, like they just start to kick you out the program. But it all depends on what he's going for. Some programs are easier than others. So I mean, when I came across that, I was like, this is crazy. But I know that's all the topics that I had today, just because of all the crazy stuff that has been transpiring. But I do know that this week and next week, the some of the better bowl games are going to come and transpire and stuff. But we'll have more on that next week, in fact. But that'll do it. Do you have anything more to add, Lamar? I should ask that.
No, I said good for me.
Well, with that being said, that'll do it for this edition of the MLB Inside the Diamond podcast and stuff. For LaMarr Fields, I'm Tom Johnston. We'll see you guys on the next one.